Welcome to Flamenco Cafe. My name is Kasandra, and I'm your host for this new flamenco program called Flamenco Cafe in English, brought to you from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and sponsored by ExpoFlamenco.com. Flamenco comes from the sunny south of Spain called Andalusia, and this is where the oranges and lemons grow on the trees, where people drink sherry, and it's the birthplace of flamenco.
Exactly.
I'm sitting with my two compañeros here, Jafelin Helten, professional flamenco singer, and Gerardo Alcala, flamenco guitarist. What we share in common is our love of flamenco and its culture. We've made repeated trips to Spain to study this art form, and we continue to return always to this small town called Jerez de la Frontera. It's about a 45-minute drive from Seville. Jerez is well known for its Bulería por Fiesta, also known as Bulería de Jerez, and it's an improvisational fiesta form between singer, guitarist, dancer, and palmas, which is the hand clapping that we do. I've seen people break out into song and dance in the middle of the streets in Jerez, at the fish market on Sundays, in living rooms, after church, and it seems to be a super spontaneous...
In the kitchen.
Yeah.
when they're cooking at 3 a.m.
Yeah. And so it's an art form that's super in the vein of fiesta and celebration. We've collectively made many trips there, and we're happy to share this journey with you. Jafelin, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to flamenco?
Yeah, of course. Okay, I am originally from Venezuela, and I was born in Ciudad Bolívar, which is quite close to the Amazon, actually, together, side by side. And I stayed there. I lived there until I was 3 years old, and then after that I moved to Caracas, and in Caracas I came across, I was raised in a Catholic school where I have to live with nuns until I was 18 years old. And but the nuns were the ones that actually were my first contact with flamenco, because they, in the recreos or the times that we have for lunch, they used to sing sevillanas or fandangos, and of course at that time I didn't know anything about it. I just came across to that, and it was really beautiful, interesting, but I didn't know at that time that was flamenco.
So were all of the nuns from Venezuela or from Spain?
They were all, yeah, of course. They were all from Spain. And then after that, so I decided to come to Canada, to Vancouver, in 1996. And I met, of course, I went to Kino first. And then I saw people singing, dancing, but I had an impression there when I met Jose Lara, that he was singing flamenco, and I felt so overwhelmed. I knew I was able to do something like that, but no idea of that was either flamenco at all. So I came across to a friend called Juan de Marias, which he's a guitarist. And after that, when I met him, he was actually preparing for a CD, and he said, wow, I can't believe, like, my flamenco was really, what I heard at Kino. At that time, I was what we call cantineando a little bit. And then
I have to fill in the blanks for some people. We reside in Vancouver, and we have a tablao called the Kino Cafe. In Vancouver, listen, we are a whole ocean and half a world away from Spain, so it's a miracle that we have flamenco here at all, but we've managed to get through 25, 30 years learning flamenco together as a community. And the Kino Cafe was really kind of the first stop. So the Kino Cafe has been genuinely responsible for many of us pushing the edge of our talent and our ability, because we have had the whole community intact, which is very different from some of you who are living in remote places in the world. We have a whole community of flamenco guitarists that play at a high level, and we have a group of singers all the way from beginners all the way to professionals working here. And of course the dance, there's probably about 400 people in the city trying to study the dance, as well as the palmas. So that's where most of us started out.
Yeah.
That's where I saw Gary too.
We have been meeting for already 20 years.
Yeah.
So then with Juan de Maria, so through him I met Gary, and then that's when I started to actually, Gary is my mentor, and that's when I started actually to study and take more interest to go to Spain and practice with him and practice with all the guitarists we had. But I knew that it was very profound when I met Gary to me, because his way of telling me, you know, like, you have to study pretty much this, you have to go this way to be able to learn more about flamenco. And that way was actually the life experiences that he told me, and how, you know, how to find letras or lyrics that were with meaning, because they love.
Which is super important.
Yeah, it's super important because they love, you know, their history. These lyrics are so old, more than 200 years old,
and we're super lucky that you found this love of flamenco and were able to study through Gary, because now Jafelin is the founder of Expo Flamenco, that brings flamenco articles and interviews translated from Spanish to English to the rest of the world. And so their website is expoflamenco.com, where you can see what some of flamenco's top artists are doing during the pandemic and what they're saying about the history of flamenco.
Yeah.
So next to her is Gerardo Alcala, but we live in Canada, so we all call him Gary. It's a little bit easier to say. Gary is originally from New Orleans, from the United States. So do you want to tell us about your upbringing?
Well, I was born in New Orleans, which is cradle of jazz, and some people say blues. And I was raised mostly in the South, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, but also my dad was in the military, in the Navy, so I was also traveling and moving every 2 years. And I lived in the south of Italy, which is very similar to the south of Spain. So the first time I went to Spain, I felt right at home. But then I also lived in Japan for 2 years. But growing up, I heard a lot of music, being down in the south and stuff. Especially, I fell in love with the blues. In all my teenage years, I was playing blues. And later, when I got into flamenco, I realized, or I saw, that blues and flamenco are like sister music. They have so many things in common. So it's kind of easy for me to slip into flamenco in that sense, in the emotional sense of the music.
How do you mean? Do you mean that the lyrics and the poetry is very similar? Or?
Yes, the lyrics, some of the lyrics, you could put a blues, old blues lyric next to a flamenco lyric and say, well, that was almost translated literally from one to the other language. So as many letters are the same, plus both of those kinds of music came from people who had been, you know, downtrodden, oppressed, discriminated against, the Roma or Gypsy people in Europe and around the world, wherever they've gone, have been kind of persecuted. And of course the African Americans, slavery and all this Jim Crow and stuff. So they both come out of that kind of experience of life, and the subject matter of the different lyrics is the same. It's all about, you know, things like, well, oppression, death, sad love affairs, being in prison,
Yeah, especially
being
that
in
one.
jail, things like this.
And would you say that you were first attracted to flamenco because of the lyrics or the poetry or the cante or the music?
I was first attracted to flamenco. I heard an anthology in the house I was living in. A guy played this anthology, is the Hispavox, which is the first flamenco anthology, which was made, I think, in 1953, which had all the greatest singers. It had 3 LPs, all the greatest singers from that time. And the thing that grabbed me the most was the singing, even more than the guitar, even though I played guitar and stuff. But what really grabbed me was the singing. I didn't understand Spanish at all, but something about that sound grabbed me, and I just had to find out more about it. And that started me out on the
Great
discovery.
long life journey.
Yeah.
Oh, well, my name is Kasandra, and I have a very different experience. I am 3rd generation Chinese Canadian here in Vancouver, BC, Canada. And I came to flamenco after actually studying 20 years of classical violin at the highest level possible. And at the time I had a violin teacher, a very inspirational lady by the name of Gwen Thompson. And she had a flamenco lesson with Oscar Nieto, and she's like, oh my gosh, you just have to try this. And so I did. I had no idea what to expect. I had never been to a dance class before then. And there was actually Gary playing in the corner of the Shadbolt Center, and from that moment, I was really intrigued with actually the flamenco guitar. So that was a very mystical and ethereal experience for me, because later on Gary explained that he was playing the Tsleil-Waututh, which I had never heard before. And the Tsleil-Waututh is the mother of all flamenco music. And so from there, being the cerebral musician, I just couldn't stand to not understand the compás or the music. So from there, it became a very big addictive journey to study flamenco as a dancer, but also with the background of being a fully trained musician. From there, I discovered my mentor, Oscar Nieto, who set me on a path to understand cuadro flamenco, and from there I made 8 trips to Spain to its epicenters. So for the dance, our epicenters are Madrid, Seville, and Jerez de la Frontera, and that's where I received my training. So now I've been involved in the flamenco scene for 25 years now, and I'm the co-founder with Oscar of Mozaico Flamenco Dance Academy, and have my professional company, Kasandra Flamenco.